America rocking from the heartland. Straight from the heartland from Cleveland, baby. It's the Michael Stanley Band with My Town at number 36 on my fancy playlist, November 20th, 1983. And this is one of these records that just wasn't played enough. You get into the record just a little bit, you hear it a couple of times and say, man, I'm feeling this record. This thing rocks. Rocking the house. And then you don't hear it anymore. Almost as if the top 40 FM stations, just a lot of them, particularly down here in the South, in Birmingham, just grudgingly added the song to the playlist. Well, dadgummit, song's moving up, and well, what the heck, we'll just put it in the rotation for a couple of weeks and then throw it on out. And this was just heartland rock and roll, classic rock right here. Michael Stanley Band. Michael Stanley, a very talented guy. Now, here's the deal. He graduated from high school in 1966, the Rock River High School in Cleveland. Guess who else graduated from the Rock River High School? Nina Blackwood. Later became VJ for MTV. She graduated from there in 1970. And speaking of 1970, Michael Stanley went to college on a basketball scholarship, graduated with a bachelor's degree in 1970, came out, he put out a couple of solo albums in 1973, 1974. One of them was called Friends and Legends. And Legends, no kidding about the Legends part of it, Dan Fogelberg sang on that album. Richie Fury sang on that album. Yes, the Richie Fury of Buffalo Springfield, one of the founding members of Buffalo Springfield back in 1966, 1967, rock and roll woman, and Bluebird or Blackbird or something like that they did I really liked in 67, back in 67. Well, anyway, they sang on that record. David Sanborn, saxophone player, he played on that album by Michael Stanley. Obscure album. Must be a collector's item now. Friends and Legends in 1974. Three members of Stephen Stills' band Manassas, his band back in the early 70s, they played on that album. Man, Manassas, that brings back some memories. They had that, Stephen Stills and Manassas had that brilliant record, Isn't It About Time, back in the summer of 1973. Bringing back some memories right there. And Michael Stanley formed this band, 1974, 1975. Started out as a 4 or 5 piece band. Later, by 1982, became a big band, 7 or 8 members in this band. Somewhere in that area of 6, 7, 8 members. They were packing the house. They took off in Cleveland. They were big in Cleveland, relatively obscure outside of Cleveland, but in Cleveland, these guys were iconic. They sold out the Richfield Coliseum, drew about over 20,000 fans. No small feat. No small feat. And in the early 80s, at one venue, they drew over 40,000 fans to watch them perform. Got a street. Michael Stanley got a street named after him. It was the corner of Euclid and Huron. The president of the city council was there. This happened recently, back in June. And it was called the Michael Stanley Way. How about that? Having a street named after you, boy. That's nice right there. Happened just a few months ago. Now, Michael Stanley Band never got big outside. They did. They had a top 40 hit, He Can't Love You. 1980-81, Kevin Raleigh, keyboard member of the band, he sang lead on that record, He Can't Love You. And then 1983, we get to the album. I forgot the name of the album. I wrote it down somewhere. I always forget these things. You Can't Fight Fashion. Now, here's the deal. When they were making this album, around the time they were making this album, Michael Stanley's band, their contract with EMI was about to run out. EMI offered to extend their contract by 6 months, and that's it. That's despite some of the commercial success that this band had and selling out these concerts, well, particularly in Cleveland. And Michael Stanley said, no, we're not going to do that. We want to renegotiate a contract, and so we can have some financial security. And they more or less waited out EMI. We'll just wait them out. But EMI called their bluff and dropped them. Dang. Nonetheless, My Town barely scratched top 40, went to number 39, but still, not too bad, not shabby. Something to brag to your grandkids about, you know? It's a fine rock and roll record. Should have been a bigger hit. Maybe if they weren't dropped by EMI and EMI promoted the single, promoted their tour, the song could have gone top 10. I think it, yes, I do. I think it had the potential to go top 10. It had the ingredients. Classic rock record at number 36 on my fantasy playlist, My Town by the Michael Stanley Band. Fantasy playlist, November 20th, 1983.